Let's look ahead at the upcoming season for Pacers shooting guards. Ben Mathurin, Ben Sheppard, and not Ben, Cole Swider. Big questions, or as we're theming this, what's the big deal for their season? It's all coming today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Thursday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today I've had an awful day, and I'm really looking forward to talking about these players. I really like these season preview episodes. Sometimes I get to look up numbers that I want to look up anyway because it's fun for me. And I'm also bummed in my IU hat because Jalen Harrelson did not commit to IU. I watched him play in person. He's going to be awesome. Congrats to the Notre Dame fans listening. Today in Pacerland, NBA land, we're talking about shooting guards, episode 2 of our season preview series by position. I'm calling this series, What's the Big Deal? Asking a big question that will be a big deal for all these players this season. A lot of questions for Ben Mathurin, not as many for Ben Sheppard, and not many at all, if any, for Cole Swider, who is grandfathered into this group because there's lots of guys who could be considered in the small forwards episode, and none of Aaron Nesmith, Jarris Walker, or Johnny Furphy felt like shooting guards. Cole Swider doesn't either, but he goes here today. So how this works, one biggest question, and if that can't fill up a full segment with that, we make it 2 questions. But we'll start with Ben Mathurin, who there's a lot to talk about with this season, right? We just heard from the front office talking about his role maybe being ambiguous, even though it seems like it's going to be a bench role, at least to start the season, right? And the same questions with him persist. And that's not going to be how I do his question. It's about fit more than talent. Everyone knows Ben Mathurin's very good, or like he does stuff that is very unique for someone of his age in terms of being hard to guard and being relatively efficient at his age, right? True shooting of 56.6 as a rookie, 56.2% last year. That's basically league average on pretty high volume for a young player. That's encouraging, right? The question has never been about how good Ben Mathurin is. The question is about, can what he does well fit with what the Pacers do well? And I don't want to behoove that question because we've talked about that question a million times. Ben Mathurin's addressed it. I've talked about it. We get it. What I want to get into more granularly in this segment is, what does that actually look like? What does good fit? What does Ben Mathurin rock solid fit mean for the Pacers? I have my own answer of what the thing is, but there's several other ways that this could go to me, right? Shooting is one of them. If Ben Mathurin comes in this season and is just rock solid 40% from 3, and all the rest of his skills are exactly the same, how does that change who he is? Right? Because Ben Sheppard is thought of as this shooting wing, and he can fit in lots of groups. And it's not just that, but if Ben Mathurin's catching and shooting and getting them up, it's a big deal. If he's a 40% shooter, he fits in a lot of lineups in that case. You're more comfortable playing him off the ball and still having him be a strength in that case. You know, you can put him in all these lineups that feature 2 point guards that the Pacers like to run out and have had a lot of success with. Shooting is very valuable for lots of players, but specifically one whose upcoming year has a lot of fit things going on. And so I hate to be that reductive, right? I think shooting gets a little overvalued sometimes, but in this case specifically, when the question is about fit and not ability, 3-point shooting really matters. So that's one way this could go. And as I keep asking these questions, keep in mind that any one of these things happening would be big for Mathurin. If all of them happen, he becomes like a star level guy, which is why it matters to dig into him, right? So could he become just a 40% shooter and all the rest is the same? And that just is carrying a lot of weight. That'd be a big deal. If he's just a better passer, how much of a better fit is he, right? Of the assist rate last year, a little per 36, rookie year 1.9, last year 2.8. You know, if you watched him play, you knew he was a better passer, but how much better was still TBD. 9.8 assists percentage and 2.8 assists per 36 is, again, improvement over his first season, but not some like, wow, write home about this. This is huge. This changes everything kind of numbers. 2.8 assists per 36 ranks about 235th in the NBA. Last year, that would be right between Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Justin Holiday. So, you know, that's not exactly a shining number. You don't think of those guys as passers at all. And those 2 guys specifically are good kind of occurrences of guys who typically have Mathurin's numbers there. I just clicked on the wrong number. Please ignore everything I just said. 2.8 assists per 36 would rank about 148th in the league, and would, ironically, one player still the same, be sandwiched between Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Justin Holiday, Doug McDermott, and Klay Thompson. That's funny that the stat I got wrong was very similar in players. What stands out about those names I just said, though? Those guys are shooters, perimeter guys. Mathurin is a guard who dribbles and attacks, right? If he can grow as a passer, especially in the lane, that goes a long way for his fit with the Pacers, especially because the Pacers pass the ball. Movement, speed, tempo, unpredictability. They even call it randomness. It's not randomness to them. It's randomness to us. It's randomness to the opponents. And that's what really matters. And so if you are predictable or you have to turn and actually assess for just a second and let a team kind of recover, that really cooks things up and doesn't make it the same style, right? That could be a big growth for Mathurin. Even if his passes are just zippier and quicker, right? Pacers were first in the NBA in passes per game last year. If Mathurin can keep up in that way, that's a way he could fit, even with the same level of shooting and everything else. Is it Tyrese Haliburton? This one is a big one to me. This isn't my conclusion answer, but this is a big one to me. Last year, the Pacers, Mathurin, Haliburton together, they had a minus 2.4 net rating, the Pacers did. Their defense sucked. 121.5 defensive rating the Pacers had. That's not on Mathurin. That's not on Haliburton. But clearly there's something to that because in every other scenario with just one of them or neither, the team's defensive rating was better. And these are like decent, not huge, but decent sample sizes. Pacers offense was good with both of them. 119, great. They'll be happy with that. But if they can't guard together, their fit has to be immaculate on offense to really supplant that. And it's not so much better on offense than the rest of the Pacers lineups to super be worth it. It's not like bad. 119 is amazing, but that's a big thing. That's a problem for the team. And I just tried to run 2 years ago stats to keep talking on this point. And the stats I just exploded in my face. So give me a second while I refresh this. But that could be a thing. If he just fits better with Tyrese Haliburton. 2 years ago, the Pacers had a 120 offensive rating with both of them on and an awful 119.2 defensive rating. So they actually were a plus 2 years ago in terms of net rating, but their defense has always stunk with both of them on the floor. So his fit with Tyrese Haliburton could just be that. If he's on the floor, he guards better, the team defends better. That would help him with fit a great deal. In fact, you could very easily argue that the reason Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith has been chosen as starters, and I think correctly by the Pacers, in spots that Mathurin could be a starter and was to start last season, he was whatever you want to call him, the 2 or the 3 next to Bruce Brown, is because Nesmith and Nembhard have defended, and the Pacers need that next to Haliburton. And in particular, with this starting lineup they landed on to close last season, that was 18th in defensive rating after the All-Star break. We'll see if that's real or not. All their guys were at least okay to good on defense besides Tyrese Haliburton, right? If Mathurin gets to that level, if he's that good of a defender, that would do 2 things, right? That would put him in a better fit with Tyrese Haliburton, and that could be the way he fits better with the Pacers, right? That would be question 4 for me, and that's my answer to the question of, for Ben Mathurin, what's his fit look like? If he defends at the level that I think he can, he has the tools. That's been said by everybody, Carlisle, front office, Mathurin himself. We can see it. We hear about these one-on-one drills where he's defending really well and all this stuff. I could watch him sit in the stands. People remember, he was the best defender of Giannis on the Pacers at times last year, right? That's real. This is a real thing. His team defense is not good. So if he becomes a good defender where he gets all the defensive stuff and gets it in there and applies it, if he's a good, really good defender, man, then he should start. Because maybe you think the offense is too clunky and he shouldn't, but that would be, that's the thing to me. Because then you can play him with any group. The shooting is already fine enough. The scoring is already very good and advanced for his age. The fit with Haliburton was better 2 years ago than last year, at least by the numbers. Obviously, they'll improve together, but it is what it is. They're both talented offensive players. Their floor is at worst very small minus with those 2 on the floor. But if Ben Mathurin can defend, he can fit anywhere. He can fit with anyone. Usually shooting, you can fit with anybody, especially because he could dribble. But if you can guard, you can play in the NBA. Ask Ben Sheppard. He played a lot last year. Once the Pacers were like, oh, you're a good defender already. So that's, to me, what the answer is to this question. I think the offensive fit is the part that looks the farthest off. in terms of what Mathurin needs to bridge to fit in better with the Pacers system. And that will be a frequent talking point throughout the season. And it should be. If he can fit better on offense too, that's great. But if he can really guard, if the Pacers look amazing on defense when he's out there and when they're trying to decide, okay, we're up 4 with 3 minutes to go. Who do we want out there? Okay, Ben Mathurin, get in the game. Right? If that stuff's happening, that would be fit to me. That's what the answer to the question is. So what's the big deal for Ben Mathurin this year? What's the question? What makes him the fit? What makes him answer the question that everybody's been asking about him, of him, whatever, for really the last season and a half, since it was very clear, oh my gosh, remember the start of his rookie year? This guy's going to win Rookie of the Year. He's one of the best scorers ever. He can get to the line like stars already. And then that tapered off, and he was still an awesome scorer, and he still is an awesome scorer. But the rest of the stuff has to come. The Pacers play this crazy, unique style, and it works. And they saw it give them success in the playoffs. And Ben Mathurin sitting out saw it give them success in the playoffs. So what skill or skills, plural, does it take for him to become a rock-solid fit in that style? If he can just guard, great. If he can guard and shoot, wow. If he can do everything I just said today, he's going to start by the end of the season. It's that simple. So that's what's the big deal for Mathurin. Wanted to dive into some of those numbers and really kind of give my opinion on why I think defense is the answer, because that's how they've defaulted, all right, on these picks of roles for these guys. And so if he can defend at that level, he'll get time, he'll play with other key players, and clearly become a guy that they're like, yes, we need him. His fit with this Pacers team is immaculate. Let's keep it going. Going on to the other Ben Sheppard. We had the first one of the year where somebody asked at the Chad Buchanan press conference about Ben, and they just say Sheppard or Mathurin. That's a new thing. Even though last year they're both on the team, everybody always was generally referring to Mathurin. Well, Ben Sheppard is a thing. Let's talk about him and the big question for Ben Sheppard in year 2. Hey, y'all, we got to very quickly talk about 2 great groups of people. First up, good folks over at PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 players, stat projections, and watch the winnings roll in. Like, for example, 1 Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on PrizePicks every week in September. That's right, only 1 yard gets you an automatic win. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss out on that deal. You can have up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as few as 4 correct picks. It's the best way to get in on the action, betting on sports in most states. You can play alongside several celebrities. A real money daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So if your lineups stay in play, even if one of your players gets hurt, they invented the flex play. They put their members first. It's the best way to get in on the action. So download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNBA on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Let's also quickly talk about Gametime. Best way to get tickets to the events near you, theater, comedy, sports, whatever. A lot of you are obviously into sports listening here. Well, let me tell you, this is the way to do it. Pacers season right around the corner. WNBA playoffs are rolling, and Gametime with their new Gametime Picks feature makes it easy to get tickets to your favorite live events. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff, show you only incredible deals on great deals. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They curate super deals. You can see the views from your seat. You can toggle off the hidden fees. They have their lowest price guarantee. There's no guesswork. You know you're getting the best deal, and you can prove it every step of the way. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. We are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On Women's Basketball. The WNBA playoffs are rolling. Eventually, there's going to be lots of Fever talk. They got eliminated on Wednesday night. Really fun game. If you listened to my one segment of Fever Talk earlier this week, I talked about some of the adjustments I thought they should make, and they made a lot of them, and they were winning late. They just generally played better on both ends, but the Sun are better than them, and they're a tough matchup, and the Fever, they got some work to do, but a great base. Anyway, Locked On Women's Basketball for more on the Fever and the general W playoffs, which have been really, despite all sweeps in the first round, really good. Let's keep it rolling here with Ben Sheppard. I am very intrigued by Ben Sheppard because what is this guy? What is this person, right? We talk about, and I collectively say we as like media, myself, some fans that I interact with, talk about Ben Sheppard as a 3-and-D player. And I believe right now that Ben Sheppard is a 3-and-D player. And I believe the perception of Ben Sheppard, even in the NBA, is a 3-and-D player. He gets them up, not like a lot, right? And if you remember during the season, there were times early in the year when he would catch and not shoot, even when he was really open. He finished the season at 6.9 3-point attempts per 36. It's pretty good, right? That's not awesome. That's pretty good. I think the Pacers will be happy if that's, where he kind of can settle in on the wing. But it's not like immense, but, 6.9 3-point attempts per 36. That's like 60th in the league. That's, Kobe White, Norm Powell, Garrison Matthews numbers. Like, that's shooter-ish, guys. Kyle Kuzma's in this range. Devin Vassell's in this range. Maybe you'd like to see it go up a little, but that's solid, right? That's a good number, a healthy number. And I think the volume is part of the perception of Ben Sheppard, the shooter, because, again, early in the year, it was not happening, right? He'd catch and he'd try to make a right play to help his teammates do something, or he'd try to just keep the ball moving. And that's good, right? A big part of my thesis on Ben Sheppard is good, which is a boring way to say that. But a big part of the thesis on why he was good last year for me is that he didn't make very many mistakes, right? He did a very good job. Outside of, I guess, missing shots, if you call that a mistake, but he didn't turn it over very much. He was never out of position. He wasn't getting in anybody's way with ill-timed cuts. He took 2 threes per game in his first 29 appearances last year. And I guess there were more garbage time appearances in the first 29 than the last 28, but way up to that 3-point rate in those last games, up to 3.5 a game, and was more accurate there. And then, of course, in the playoffs, he made 38% of his threes. Great number. And actually took quite a bit, like multiple every playoff game except for the game 7 against the Knicks. He did not take a 3 that game. He took multiple every other game. 3 per game, 38% in the playoffs, even with lesser minutes. But he played a lot in the playoffs for a rookie, which for Carlisle is meaningful. So I say all that to say the volume says he's a shooter. The perception of Ben Sheppard is he's a shooter. The thought of Ben Sheppard coming out of Belmont is that he's a shooter. He also only made 31.4% of his threes in the NBA last year. This is not a question more so than just, I want to know for sure. I think Ben Sheppard is a shooter. I think he'll be a good shooter in the NBA. But I took a huge L saying that I thought Chris Duarte was going to be a really good shooter. And because he was just such a great, tough shot maker. It never came to fruition. Maybe it still will. I think Ben Sheppard's going to be a really good shooter, right? But it's got to happen. And I want to see them go in this year at a rate that makes me really believe that. I think the Pacers would like to see that too, obviously, because 31.1% is not that encouraging. 34% in that second half of the year when he was playing more consistently. And also in the G League, they went in too. And he was like had harder, I guess, in the G League because he was like kind of point guard sometimes. Him and Jarris Walker, when they would get their assignments, would have all sorts of like tricky things they were tasked to do. That's the point, right? Let those guys explore. In the full season in the G League, Ben Sheppard was 26 for 70 from 3. That's 37.1%, right? Again, another add it to the list. Playoffs, college, G League of like, yeah, clearly shooter. The volume, yeah, shooter. 31.4% is not a shooter. So I guess my what's the deal big question for Ben Sheppard is like, can you make him? Can you just prove it, please? I think everybody knows it, but I don't want to have to pretend that like this is maybe a thing that won't happen. It's nice for everybody just to know. And hey, if he's making the threes at a point that there's no doubt anymore, that's great news for the Pacers that their backup small forward is that kind of guy, because being a 3-and-D wings are so valuable. And Ben Sheppard is 6'6" and can guard. And like you can laugh at saying whatever level of defender you think Ben Sheppard is, but part of his no mistake stuff last year was that he could guard. Like he had a neutral defensive box plus minus, but maybe my favorite publicly available advanced stat. And like for a rookie, that's insane. That's super good. Like being a neutral defender as a rookie is super impressive. He's never out of position. He's the best at fighting through screens on the whole roster, maybe. Good steal rate already, right? No doubt Ben Sheppard's a good defender already. And he'll only get better through time. Low turnover rate. I'm not going to rehash the Ben Sheppard never makes mistakes argument, or very rarely makes mistakes argument. And yet 52.4% true shooting. So if you're going to be a 3-and-D wing, the super valuable thing, this automatic, you need to play 15 minutes a game kind of guy, can actually make the threes. So again, every indicator is that he will. And last year, 68% of his shots were threes. Like, again, another indicator that he's a shooter and they trust him to do it and they watch him do it in practice. And he got finished well at the rim. Like he's got enough game to do other stuff when he can get there. He's just got to make them. I don't need to stress that. I can't stress that enough. And I think that that's obvious. And is Ben Sheppard actually a shooter is a pretty boring, big picture question, but I have no doubts he can defend. I don't think he's going to stop trying on defense this coming year, and he has the length and size and speed and ability to fight through screens to be a good defender again. And in team defense, he's alert and pays attention and is in the right spots. Like, that's a good defensive player. If he makes the threes again, sweet. The Pacers will be thrilled. They will have a quasi 3-and-D starter and backup on the wing. Like, that's massive. That's just massive for your style of play, for lineup combinations. They could probably play together. That's Nesmith I'm talking about here too. If they need to, like, that's just so important. So Ben Sheppard, boring question, but can you make the threes? Can they go in the basket this year? And I bet they will, right? A season helps with that. It helps with the confidence. And he just started so poorly, right? If he finished like the second half of his season, I just said was at 34%. If that was his season percentage, this would not even be a talking point. There's not a lot of other stuff I have a ton of curiosity about with Ben Sheppard. So if I had to insert a smaller question to end this, it would be kind of like the Aaron Nesmith arc we saw last year. Is how does he ever get on this arc? And if so, how quickly? Of like Aaron Nesmith would catch, shot fake a three, put it on the floor, take a mid-ranger, get to the rim, and like finish. And it was reliable enough that was fine, right? 2 years ago, that would never have happened for Aaron Nesmith. It was either shot or he should get it out. He should pass. That was a big evolution for him to be able to read those patterns, read those closeouts, and make the right plays. Does that ever happen for Ben Sheppard? If he's not making the threes, it won't matter. No one will close out hard enough for it to matter. I think that was part of why it clicked for Nesmith last year. But can he make those reads where he catches in the corner and there's a flyby, and then he can put it on the floor and either finish or pass or just do something of added value? Because then it's really hard to defend those shooters, as we saw with Nesmith last year. But the threes have to go in for that to matter. But I still want to know, like, what kind of development can he make in that way? Because he does finish well at the rim. He's smooth as a player. So I don't have a ton of big questions for Ben Sheppard because the framework of what he can be right now seems fairly obvious. But the better he gets, the more questions there are. Because then it's, what more can he do? How valuable is this really? And I can't wait to see year 2 for the surprise now Nike athlete, Ben Sheppard. Good for him. Let's talk about Cole Swider, a new guy. Less questions for him because I did a whole deep dive episode on him already and the how they can help series on the new guys. But let's ask some Cole Swider questions to close out today's show. Before we do that, though, we're going to talk about the lovely folks over at FanDuel. NFL fans, the week is restarting today. You can start the season off yourself with a big return on FanDuel. They are America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get that hunch, there it is, the hunch you get in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats going on in the league. You can view live up-to-the-minute play-by-play. So much more on the same page is where you place your bets. You don't have to be juggling from app to app or anything like that. Latest stats, play-by-play, and your hunches and your bets right in the same spot. You can get started on FanDuel with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with a $5 bet. That is on FanDuel.com. Check it out. We are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second one should be Locked On Grizzlies. Derrick Rose gives back all his money. Whoa. Interesting buyout. Interesting waiver. I predict that they're going to promote Scottie Pippen Jr. to a standard contract, but that's just my guess. Looking at their roster setup and cap situation, we'll see what the Grizzlies decide to do. But wow, the vet out the door. What are the Grizzlies going to do? Well, Locked On Grizzlies knows way better than I would. Joe Mullinax did an episode on this. I'm guessing they'll do another one. Check it out. Locked On Grizzlies for your second listen. Let's finish up with Cole Swider here today. Congrats to Cole Swider for being 6'9" and getting in the shooting guards episode of this. I bet he would be more likely to play 4 minutes than 2 minutes for the Pacers. But hey, you find a good spot to put him that gets 3 players per episode. And I'll say thanks. That's a good idea. But this seems the most natural to me, given that the Nesmith Walker Furphy episode next is definitely more clearly wing types. Will be defending wings. Perhaps Swider. I don't know. I don't think Swider can defend guards. But whatever. This is fine. Cole Swider. He's new to the Pacers. We ran through the shooting is what his deal is going to be. Right? It hasn't really happened in the NBA. It's been like unbelievable everywhere else, in the G League, in college, at Summer League. They just go in a lot. Right? And so he hasn't stuck anywhere because that's it. It's been the shooting, and that's it. 25 total NBA games, partially with the Lakers, partially with the Heat. I know I expect Cole Swider will make threes, right? If he's open, he can shoot it, and it will go in. That's great. What else? Can this guy do anything else that's going to matter for the Pacers this year, right? Is he actually any good? And that sounds very harsh to say. He's in the NBA. Of course, he's a good player, but like that's what if you kind of think about last year's Pacers team, It's very easy to say, oh, Cole Swider's battling it out with Kendall Brown for that roster spot. So maybe if he makes it, he'd play about as much as Kendall Brown did last year. It seems more likely looking at the roster and how they would, have Furphy with G League reps. Maybe they would put Cole Swider in the G League, but it seems more like Cole Swider being like the Jordan Nwora track. Jordan Nwora played like 180, 200 minutes with the Pacers, 18 games. Like if you're playing that much, Jordan Nwora had a couple games he's in the rotation. I don't think Swider will have that, but it's not like unreasonable for a guy with NBA experience who has an obviously very good NBA skill to play that time. So what else can he do? Can he do anything else good or of added value for the Pacers? Because he's done like some stuff. Is how I would describe it. Again, I did a whole podcast on this. Like he can kind of rebound a little. His finishing at the rim is pretty good, especially in the G League level. In the pros last year, he made every shot he took inside 3 feet, right? He's very poacher-esque in that way, right? He is effective in those ways, but a lot of his value is shooting, and I don't want to belabor that too much, but like 80% of his shot attempts in the pros have been threes. That's what he's out there to do. That's fine. That's a good player. Specialists are good. And I think that I've said this all offseason. I thought the Pacers kind of needed some shooting. I don't think Cole Swider is going to play in a way where it like super matters for them. But if you have an extra shooting weapon, that's good. You can use that in any way. But what else can you do? Because if his level of defense, right? We had Wes Goldberg on from Locked On Heat who covered him last year, right? Wes talked about his defensive level. He's 6'9". Like it's not a joke because he's 6'9", but he's not staying in front of guys. So if you're that level of defender and you're just shooting, Doug McDermott at least can like get around a screen and put it on the floor twice and make a defense panic, or he can get it up really fast. And he's been 40% for years and years and years and has this reputation and is really good off-ball mover. Swider's still developing all that other stuff besides just like the actual putting the ball in the basket part. So like it's even different than that. So what else can he do? That is what I will be curious to see. Is it unreasonable that he can kind of hit a Nwora level? Nwora was a really great scorer. I think that's pretty unreasonable to ask of Cole Swider. Remember, Nwora was a 14 points a game guy for the Pacers at one point. So Cole Swider's probably not going to play very much. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody at all. But what can he do besides just shooting? If he doesn't shoot, or if he does even if he does just shoot, what does that actually mean for the Pacers? Is somebody they'd actually keep? His contract's non-guaranteed, right? He has to prove it even during the season. He could get to January and get cut, a la Keelan Martin, a la James Johnson, a la lots of guys at that deadline for the Pacers in years past to, whatever their role situation shakes out for them to be. If it makes sense, it makes sense. So he's got to continually prove that his shooting is valuable. And can he do more than that? That makes him a guy that they can't afford to not have, even as just a depth piece, right? I don't think anybody thinks that Cole Swider's ability is going to make or break the Pacers season, but they might need him for a couple of games. In fact, history says basically everybody will need for at least a game to contribute in some way. Even Isaiah Wong played in the game, right? Oscar Shebo was in the rotation twice, right? Even two-way guys sometimes sneak in. So if you're on the team you're going to play, there's going to be a night where the team's so banged up, you're actually needed. So Cole Swider, yeah, shooting is good. That will make him have a role on the floor. That makes sense. What else can you do? And does it matter long enough that he makes it through the season, that somebody they consider? Or is he just let this guy battle for the 15th, get some shooting on the team, and reassess? That will be how that signing is defined. Shouldn't be a ton of pressure on him or the Pacers to nail it. It's a non-guaranteed one-year deal, but I'll be curious to see. He's got the NBA experience and is a clear specialist, and I like, for those last roster spots, the specialist types. For teams specifically in the Pacers spot that are trying to win. If you're developing, yeah, sure, take the flyer on the young athletic guy, but I think in their spot, the specialist type makes sense. We'll see what happens if Cole Swider is even on the opening night roster. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Tomorrow, Tom Lewis is going to join us, Indy Cornrow's publisher, leader, whatever you want to call it. We're going to talk about some big worries potentially for the Pacers this year. Both inspired because I wanted to talk about this anyway, and because Tom asked a great question at the press conference on Tuesday to Chad Buchanan about chemistry year over year, and it's not a guarantee that it will remain. I thought, that's a good point. What other good points can we make? You'll find out tomorrow, and then next Monday's Media Day. We're rolling. We're off and rolling here at Locked On Pacers. Season's here. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show. I'm on Twitter at Tony R. East. Lots of favorite tweets on there right now because they just played in the playoffs. And this podcast is at Locked On Pacers. It's where you can find all the topics for everyday shows. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Be back tomorrow. Till then, have a wonderful day.